It is 11 o'clock in the morning here on April 1st, 2025. It's nice, warm, windy. Still the morning before noon. And yeah, sorry about the wind there. Just got a gust of wind. But you can see the grass is growing really well. And mixed in with that grass is all sorts of other things. The yellow buttercups are pretty obvious. The white flowers is miner's lettuce, but some of it is something else. There's like these pink flowers here that isn't miner's lettuce. That's something else. I think that's a type of clover. I could be wrong. And there's still a bunch of hairy vetch in this part. So here's some hairy vetch. Has a tiny little like purple flowers. Get out of my way. You're sitting on the hairy vetch. Get out. Dogs. Here's some more of that hairy vetch. But yeah, you can see the grass is very tall now. It's just exploding. It's growing inches a day. And as we progress down the pasture, it's going to get thicker and thicker each time I turn out the sheep on a new row. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let the sheep graze here, and then maybe tomorrow or the day after I'll roll out a bale of hay. Mostly in anticipation of the cows, but also to balance the sheep's diet. So I'm going to see what happens there in terms of eating the natural forage that's already here. I'm inspired to say a few words here about regenerative agriculture. And what inspired this was I saw an ad talking about how you need to get a subscription service so that a company can give you the right chemicals to put in your lawn to keep your lawn healthy, okay? And then I saw a bunch of videos talking about how do you take care of the insects in your garden. Because some people's gardens are overrun with insects. I'm going to turn away from the wind. We'll look at the cows in the hay. And I was thinking that I can't help but think that those two problems are related. That a lot of gardeners, they have this notion that you have to put chemicals in your garden bed in order to grow healthy plants, and even to a degree compost. Compost is not how nature does it. That's not nature doesn't build a compost pile and spray it with a hose and turn it every couple of days. That's not what nature's doing. They're confused because they're planting seeds and stuff, and they're not getting anything out of it in the end. Like somehow nature's working against them, and they're confused by what's happening. I'm going to give a couple notes, or at least theories that I have. I can't speak as an expert on this topic. The only claim to fame I have is what you're looking at right here, which honestly isn't much better than most other people's pastures, right? So I can't say that I'm doing a lot better than anybody else, right? But what I have done is no chemicals for several years. I think in 2021, late 2021, I put down some lime because I did a soil test and they said your soil is acidic. And one of the reasons why the soil turns acidic is because you're putting fertilizer in it and upsetting the natural balance of how the soil is supposed to live, right? And so, I had to put some lime down, kind of give the soil a kickstart to give the clovers a chance to germinate, because if the soil is too acidic, the clovers can't grow, right? And it was outside of the range for clovers. And I didn't have any clovers, so I'm like, well, I got to do something to get it started up again here. But you look at a spot like this and you're like, oh my goodness, what a mess. You got those broadleaf weeds. You got some other kind of weed there, and you're looking at this picture and there's like another kind of weed and another kind of weed and all kinds of weeds in this grass, and then there's like 3 or 4 different kinds of grass growing in this one spot. And to top it all off, you got this old manure here. You know what I'm saying? Right? But what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to build the soil. And so the real growth isn't happening at the surface. You do see stuff on the surface, but it's underground, right? The root systems and everything like that. And that's really what I'm targeting. And if I were to come here and dump a bunch of chemicals on the soil, that would upset the balance, right? And, I need the balance in the soil so that the bacteria and the funguses and everything down there can do their job and be a healthy living organism, right? And that's, a long time ago we had this idea of the humors inside the body, that you had like different kinds of humors and you had to bring them into balance. So that's where the practice of bloodletting came from, is they're like, well, you have too much blood, we have to let some out. What they were trying to do was they were trying to find that happy balance between extremes, because going one extreme or the other is not good, right? And so a lot of times, like in your lawn, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build an unhealthy state where you have deep, dark green grass that's thick, but the soil's dead, right? And you can do that with chemicals if you're very careful and know what you're doing. But the problem is that the plants are not healthy. They look healthy. They grow tall and fast, and they have the right color. But there's other processes that plant needs to participate in. It's just like in our grocery store. You go there and you see a bright red tomato and you're like, that's certainly healthy for me, right? And so you buy that tomato, you take it home and eat it. It doesn't taste good, right? It doesn't have flavor. If it doesn't have much flavor, it has flavor at all, right? You bought basically something very bright red that looks like it should be healthy, but it's not, right? And then you measure the nutritional content of these things, and you wonder why, our grandparents were eating actually healthy food, and now we're eating, food that looks better, but isn't full of nutrients like what they had, right? And so the bugs, one of the breakthroughs that I understood was people were saying that the bugs can't survive if the plants are healthy, and kind of the comparison to try to explain what that means is if you saw a guy walking down the street covered in bugs, would you say, he needs to wipe those bugs off? Or would you say there's something fundamentally wrong with that person on the inside that's causing those bugs to eat on him, right? That's what you would say, right? There's something wrong, right? Because a healthy person doesn't have bugs all over his body, right? You know that if there's bugs crawling around you, that something's wrong. You're not healthy, right? And the same with the plants. The plants have a way to keep the bugs off. And the reason why the plants aren't doing it is because the plants aren't healthy. They're on the verge of death. And the bugs actually serve a role in nature, okay? It's not a fun role, but it's an important role, is you have to clear out the dying and the weak to make room for the healthy to thrive, right? And so the bugs go through and they find those grasses and those weeds and stuff that just aren't doing well. And they chew them up and they poop out whatever they poop out and allow that to go back to nature and start the next cycle, So the first year I did this, I had a bunch of grasshoppers. We had a drought, a bunch of grasshoppers. The next year, not as many. And then last year, I had hardly any grasshoppers at all. There's like one part of my pasture where I had a few. But 2 years ago, I noticed that where the Bermuda grass was really strong, the grasshoppers were completely absent. They were eating on the edge where the Bermuda grass wasn't doing well, And so the bugs target the sick and the dying plants. And so if you have a problem with bugs eating your crops, it's because your crops aren't healthy. It's because you put chemicals in there to upset the balance of nature. And the plants, it's like that tomato you buy in the store. It's bright and red. Should be healthy, but it's not, And so you have to focus on building up the soil, building up the bacteria, building up that carbon underneath. And compost can be part of that plan, absolutely. But there's natural cycles that we have to support and that we don't want to get in the way of. We don't want to interfere with that, And as you can see here that I'll just kind of excuse the wind. I'll speak up. Hopefully you guys can hear me. The phone seems to do a good job of filtering out the wind, but it also filters out my voice. I'm going to find a good spot here and turn. But look at this, right? So what I did is I took some hay. I rolled it out, obviously, so the cows can eat. But look what the cows did to this hay. Look what the cows did to this hay. How is this different than what the cows would have done to a lot of leftover forage from the summer? Like if I hadn't grazed here for 8 months or 9 months, How would that be different? And that's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to basically get a kickstart, a head start, by replicating what would have happened if I started with healthy stuff, right? So the cows, they come in here and they munch on it and they poop and they pee in it. They make a royal mess. I mean, this stuff, it doesn't smell great. I'll show you underneath what it looks like. You know, but that's how you build up the healthy soil, is with organic matter and allow nature to do its thing, right? I'm not spraying chemicals. I'm not doing fertilizer. I don't till, right? Tilling is not good for the soil. It doesn't like being tilled. I'm just using animals, munching on the forage and pooping it out and peeing all over the place. And we keep them moving. That helps keep the parasite count down, but it also gives the grass a chance to regrow and put roots down. And those roots, that's how they're finding that the roots is where it's all at. That the plants put the roots deep, and then when the plants die, the leftover roots provides an entire ecosystem underground that other things can grow in. So anyway, so that's my goal. That's what I'm doing. If you guys have already seen like videos for years, you've heard the spiel before, but some of you might be new and confused on why I'm doing things the way I am. And you know, another thing to keep in mind is I'm not really a cattle farmer or a sheep farmer, even a grass farmer. My primary focus is how do I get that soil to return to health, where it can support all the plants that used to grow here. When the settlers first came to this area, there was grass above their heads, there was bamboo everywhere, and there was vast herds of bison roaming the plains, you know, tromping all the plants and eating everything up and pooping and peeing everywhere and then moving on. And that's what we're trying to do, is restore that balance by using natural processes. So guys, you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.